Sit back, relax, put your belt on, and enjoy the show.
Last game of the week, the Reds versus the Crusaders, the blockbuster that everyone's been waiting for, I think. So, there was some talk. Brad Thorne was basically targeting this one by giving everyone a bit of a rest after last week. I think it was more the fact that he was a realist and knew that they wouldn't get back up after the grand final.
Yeah.
But what a game at Suncorp. It should be a sellout. You got a couple of big injury concerns with the concussions to James O'Connor and Josh Fluke. I would have said Fluke would have been easy to cover, but at the moment they really don't have a lot more established centre options.
No.
And Hamish,
he's been pretty good, let's face it. I mean, I know that even when he came in, Drew Mitchell was getting very vocal about the fact that he couldn't understand why he was in the centres. He would have moved Jordan Patai in from the wing, and that just seemed. But in the final, and Fluke, he had a moment where it was pretty influential in the result in that game. He's been terrific.
He's definitely stepped up in those two Super Rugby AU games when he had those chances, and both against the Brumbies in big pressure moments. I still think there's a few work on. I mean, when we're comparing him to Paisami, it's always going to be a glaring difference because of how good he has been in recent years. But I mean, Pattaya, when he was in that 13 jersey, he looked like he was trying to do too much, and he had a very error-ridden game. And Fluke's been better than that. I think I'd love to say that they still had Chris Faraway Saltillo on the books, because I think he'd fill that role very well for them. But without Fluke there, and we're not sure on Paisami, it's going to be interesting.
Is there a bit of horror about Fluke? The way he plays the game? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I just think he's got a class. I don't think he's there yet, don't get me wrong, but he just has a very comfortable, confident way of playing where he gives you a lot. You're always backing him to be able to step up to the level. But having said that, I do think that they're missing a bit of balance in their centres. And I think if he's fit or not, they will be hanging out to get Hunter Paisami back just for the impact that he provides in that side.
I think, interestingly, they kicked a lot through Super Rugby AU. And when you're missing a lot of the strike power, we'll touch on it. Obviously some of the other names they're missing, and they missed last week. But they were missing a lot of strike power, and they didn't really get the go forward and earn the right to kick the ball. They felt like they were passively kicking. How many times last weekend did we see them just try to kick the ball out of their 22, and instead of it going out, they had a tack right back in their face, or they had a try. They turned around and there was a try scored. They
couldn't get out of their 22. That's actually sort of feeds into a really interesting discussion. I don't know whether you saw on Stan Sport, we did a preview to the Trans Tasman competition, but it was based on stats and numbers that Michael Checker got hold of. He's been using this stats company in Sydney for a few years now called Measure M. And they do like really deep dive analytics to the point where we actually went through the most influential players in the competition based on not only how much they kicked, but how effective the kick was, or
where they ended up.
Or with their carries. What was the result of the carry? How did that influence the game? All that. So it's quite sort of pointy-headed stuff. But one of the stats that is memorable for me is that Australian teams kicked a whole lot more and kicked a lot further than New Zealand teams on a whole across Super Rugby AU compared to Super Rugby Aotearoa. But what the result of those kicks was nowhere near as effective as when the Kiwis kicked. So the Kiwis kicked less, but a lot more effectively. And I think we saw a bit of a microcosm of that from the Reds last week. They kicked a bucket load, but it was always under pressure. It was always to try and get out of trouble rather than try and set something up and create something.
Yeah, interesting on that. the last thing you want to do is give a Kiwi side the ability for a kick return. You're talking about the Aussies kicking further. There's a reason Kiwi teams probably don't always just go for distance, because you create space for a player to run back. You know, we've seen in the last few years shorter kicks, more contestable bombs, little things like that, little chips. So if it does reach Damien McKenzie, you're in his face to make the tackle, you know, or you've got a chance to get the ball. You're not just kicking it deep into the back paddock and giving him that, you know, disarray and gaps. And I think that's something that the Reds, they just seem to kick willy-nilly, and it wasn't really a you know, controlled, thought-out kicking. The loss of James O'Connor probably didn't help at half.
Yeah, but I actually thought Bryce Hegarty played quite well. I'm just writing that game off as a one-off. They didn't look like themselves at all. I think there was too many changes and they were too distracted by the week before. So I don't want to dwell too heavily on that one game because of the fact that it was just so out of character the way they played. And they made the Highlanders look absolutely brilliant somehow. Look, there's a few potential big ins here. You know, James O'Connor, you mentioned, might be out, but Harry Wilson and Alex Murphy both had concussions from the final. So Harry Wilson will obviously be straight back into the starting side. Alex Murphy probably back to the bench, you would think. But on the Wilson point, I guess that begs the question, what happens to the rest of the back row? And Liam Wright was brilliant last week.
I don't know if we're sure that he's back. Have we? I don't think we've had any reports.
No, they haven't named him yet or anything like that. But he's a concussion, which means unless they have some lingering problems, he's back for the next game.
Yep.
They seem to like that model of bringing Liam Wright off the bench. And Angus Scott-Young, I think, has played. Just trying to think. So he played last weekend, didn't he? So I think he's played pretty much every minute or close to every minute of the season so far.
I think my take on that was Liam Wright. You know, he was out for a long time. When he worked his way back in, he didn't get a good chance to really solidify that spot. Angus Scott-Young, Fraser McWright had been so good that they offered those guys their chances, which I think was deserved chances in the grand final. And I always expected that there would be some changes come the Super Rugby Aotearoa. I think Wright's got to work his way back into that side. They gave Angus Scott-Young the chance to play in the locks. I don't think he's a lock. He offers so much, but surely at one point, and I'm thinking it's this week, we see Liam Wright at 6, Fraser McWright at 7, both back together like we did last year.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, that's what I would expect as well. I'm with you. I think that'll be what happens. On the Crusaders side of things, Sione Avili ruled out of the Aotearoa Grand Final just before kickoff with a concussion. So he's another one that missed an extra week. So potentially back again. They haven't confirmed him. Will Jordan, I think, is believed to be back from his minor foot injury. They actually called it a rest in the end. Mitch Drummond, the same, just rested. And Scotty Barrett missed last week with illness as well. I think a late withdrawal. So they're all expected to be back. So they'll be very, very strong in their squad and their depth once again. Their problem is who to pick. How do you pick the best players and put them all on the park and give them confidence to keep on playing as well as they have been, really? But in particular, the one I want to talk about is how do you fit 4 into 3 or 3 into 2, the way you look at it. I think the centres and the back and the outside backs, it's got to be Havili and probably Enor at 12-13, which leaves you Fenga and Nuku rather. And George Bridge.
Yeah.
How do you put those 3 into 2 spots? Because I assume Will Jordan's at the fullback.
Yeah, see, is Bridge the one who misses out there? Like, Nuku's been unbelievable.
I think on form...
Sorry, go on.
I think on form it should be George Bridge. Severeece, we know what Severeece can do, and I think he's done it at points throughout this year. Fainga Nuku has just, honestly, I think he's been, Severeece-esque from a couple of years ago. So, I mean, if they're your 2 wingers and you're bringing on someone like George Bridge who can cover 15, cover the wing, is so experienced, he's probably an amazing player to bring off the bench. They all would be.
Yeah.
But, I mean, do we just keep seeing them rotate those guys around a little bit?
Yeah, maybe. But I'd be starting Fainga'anuku and Sevu Reece. The thing about Sevu Reece, he reminds me of Marika Koroibete. Just the way that, and I guess you'd say it to any young kid, if particularly in schoolboy footy, kids never see it on the wing. I never see the ball on the wing. Well, you go and look for it. He just bobs up everywhere. Like it's almost, and I'm sure he's just given that permission just to, play what you see. But you never quite know where he's playing. It's just incredible.
Yeah, and his class in any situation is just ridiculous as well. Yeah. I'm still thinking back to that funny little kind of banana kick he put back into the middle of the field early in Super Rugby Aotearoa.
That's right.
Which just confused everybody. No one had any idea what he was thinking, but it was just absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
He just has...
And it was so ridiculous that everyone's thinking, did he mean to do
it? Yeah, 100% he did.
I thought it was ugly but perfect. It just seemed too good to be true almost.
Yeah.
If we jump across to the forwards and any changes, I think we probably see Havili come back in for Sanders in the 7 jersey. I think at the moment he's their choice there. Ethan Blackadder, we've been wanting to see something from him throughout this year, and I think he had a really good game last week.
Outstanding year.
Yeah, but he's just gotten better again.
Yeah. He stepped up for sure.
Yeah, he was immense last week. So I don't think there's too many other changes in that forward pack.
No.
I don't think so. I did realise that we missed something in the Reds though. If Hunter Paisami's not fit, what do they do at outside centre?
Who are we talking about? I don't know.
Their options are basically Isaac Henry or maybe Ilesaya Droasesi.
Who's a winger, really, isn't he?
Yeah. What do you do then? Maybe you could put Hegarty to... Well, then who? Yeah, no one else can play 10. You could put Hamish Stewart at 12. You could put...
He's there.
I don't know. I don't have any solutions.
Well, Hamish, well, he has been 12, hasn't he? Hamish Stewart.
Yeah, he has.
I was thinking if you slide him in, it allows you to slide the fullback out. What's his name? Hegarty back out to 13. But then you still have a hole, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Looking at their lineup,
we maybe put Jock Campbell fullback.
Yeah, I would think that's definitely what will happen if
Hegarty
goes to 10. But there still leaves that channel at outside centre that they're going to have to try and plug somehow. So I think they'll be doing everything they can to get Paisami back, because who else have they got?
I don't know.
You're looking at the squad list there.
I'm looking. I mean, we get Vunivalu onto a wing. Just kick the ball to him. He's shown that he, with the ball in hand, how good he is. But I mean, all he had in his chances on the weekend were crossfield kicks, and he beat the man both times and scored off the back of it.
It's interesting, but the flip side to that is defensively.
Yeah,
I think he's still finding his feet as well. He'll have a lot of traffic coming at him for sure.
Oh, if there's any team that'll take advantage of that as well, it'll be the Crusaders, won't it?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we'll just pretend like we answered that one.
What else can you do? You've got Mac Greeley, you've got the guys you touched on. I mean, Dungunu's not really a centre, but we're going to have to see someone filling that role.
It's going to be Isaac Henry.
It's going to be Isaac Henry. I reckon you're right.
All right,
we'll go. That's the
Reds by how much, Nick?
Reds by how much? Can I just say it will be obviously? So it's 10 years since the 2011 final. So there's a big lunch happening in Brisbane on Friday, and then there's a reunion happening at the ground with as many players as they can get back as possible. So I think Will Genny is back in the country. I don't know whether he'll be out of quarantine in time, but James Hall got out of quarantine today, so he'll be there. So that's a pretty special thing to be celebrating. Doesn't feel like 10 years. It's ridiculous. But yeah, listen, not with any great surety, but I just love to see the Reds win. They haven't beaten the Crusaders since that 2011 final either.
Oh, wow.
So, wow. Well, no doubt those players will be in the dressing room speaking to them before the game and kind of firing them up.
What's that? Sorry?
No doubt they'll have those players all in the dressing rooms and in the night before trying to fire everybody up as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice to think so. I mean, that's one of my favourite all-time games, that 2011 final. So if we get something that even approaches that, it's going to be a great night. Let's say the the Reds by 1.
Oh, I
Love it.
Yeah, look, I just have a feeling I'd rather believe that the Reds were saving it for this week.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to if Paisami plays for me. Is if Paisami and James O'Connor are playing, I'm going to tip the Reds to cause a massive upset. Without them, I honestly can't see it happening. Yeah. I'm just going to have to make a pick.
Assume they're back.
Assuming they're back, I'll say the Reds by 3.
Reds by 14. It'll be one of those Crusaders games.
Well, I mean, the good thing is that we know from this year that the Crusaders are beatable.
Yeah, they are. They're right. Definitely.
They've slipped.
Yeah, they don't have that. I mean, they've still got an aura, but it's not the same as it has been in previous years.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Except in grand finals in Christchurch, where
any final.
Yeah.
I've just booked a ticket actually, Nick, to be in Christchurch for the grand final of Super Rugby Trans Tasman. So I don't know which way I'll be cheering actually now that I think about it.
That's unfortunate because the game's going to be played in Sydney.
All right.
Look, thanks for being on board with us throughout this.
We've gone way over time. We just had too much fun.
That's all right. No, my pleasure. It's good to catch up with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
Cheers, mate.
Good on you. Cheers.